We got some high-tech metal manipulation going on here. Welcome back to the Lost Cause Ranch! Today, we're back on the LS3 Defender, and we're finally sorting out these chooched out floors. These guys, not going back in. Last video, we made our fancy cardboard templates. Today, we make these. I'm not gonna throw these. These are actually nice. So we're gonna take our two colorful templates from last video, transfer them over to our chunk of aluminum here, or in honor of the Defender aluminum. So obviously the edge on our cardboard template is not the most straight thing in the world because I used a dull utility knife like a smart guy. So we're gonna clean that line up before we get to cutting with a nice straight edge. I need something fairly heavy. We'll try that. Double check it before I ruin a chunk of aluminum. Need some juice. Quick pit stop. I haven't quite cleaned up my disaster of a mess from the last project yet. Sometimes cleaning's an easy thing to procrastinate. So the aluminum is obviously not as compliant as the cardboard. It don't bend quite as easy. So we may have to tweak some of these areas and the corners as we set it in there, because this may have just kind of moved out of the way against the bulkhead. So obviously, if you've cut with a jigsaw before, you know it's never gonna be perfectly straight. Just kind of what you deal with. We got it very close, but it's not 100% perfect. So my fix for that is to take a straight edge, clamp that guy down, then we can run our flap disc right up against this edge, and it'll be as straight as whatever you clamp down. So use something straight. I'll knock a touch off this corner here to get around the seam sealer. And then this one should be good. A little bit more out of there. On that, we're happy with. We have a nice square edge on this side. Good consistent fitment all the way around. Even gap against the seat box. The other side, gonna need a tiny bit more tweaking. I must not have been real accurate on my cardboard. We need to trim a little bit around the tunnel so we can suck it forward a little bit more. And I'm not quite sure where I missed on the template, but I added like a 1/4 inch. So I'll trim that off too. I mean, I guess at least I missed evenly. If the supervisor wouldn't have been out on medical leave during making of the template, probably would have been right. So we got both floor pans fit up. So now that we got them sized correctly, we just need to get the holes popped in so they can be fastened down. What we're gonna do is line these up exactly where we need them, then shoot a mark up from the bottom, hit them with the old ink saw, and that is by far the easiest way to lay them out where they need to be. So we got our holes in. I'm missing these two above the fuel tank. So what I'm gonna do is make a mark right on the edge here. This marks the location of the hole, and we'll be able to see that with the plate down. Now we can just mark the plate right there and right there. So we just need to match our distance on this one to over here and here. So now we just need to repeat the process on this side. Kind of what happens when you're doing the same thing over and over. Starting to get pretty closed in. Don't mind the massive hole there. But the floor pans are good to go. And being those are flat, that is a fairly simple job. Now we got to tackle something a touch more complex. So we obviously need to make this big hole disappear. The 6-speed automatic transmission for the LS3 took up quite a bit more room than the LT77 that was in there. So we clearanced it all, and we got plenty of room now. We just need to finish off the rest of the tunnel. And we also have a fair amount of corrosion on this side flange. So we're gonna zip that off. So with the flange cut off, we just need to do a little measuring, and we're probably gonna come out to about here, and we'll weld a new clean aluminum piece on with some new holes. And once we have that side locked in, we can move to the more difficult one. So we made a couple reference marks when we had it in the Defender, so we're just gonna run a couple tacks. Wings out on it. Looks awful funny. But the driver's side is starting to look a little more complete. I'm liking all the fresh aluminum in there. Got the new flange on the trans tunnel just tacked in there. That's gonna let us figure out what we wanna do on the passenger side. This is the side that needs a little more bump out. So I'm probably gonna work my way up. Start with that bottom flange. That guy's gonna be roughly 13.5 inches long. And if you take a peek at it from this angle, the seat box has a little bit of a layback. So going up on the aluminum, we're gonna have to grow this way when we get up to the back here. Somewhere in the neighborhood of 1.5 inches. We got some high-tech metal manipulation going on here. So I wanna lessen the angle on the passenger side tunnel so we don't have to like bump out and look all funny. And we're gonna flatten it a little bit too. So just using that same clamp as before, and we're gonna come out of our bend a little bit. So that was 90 degrees before. So now we have a more gentle angle to come off of. And with that angle, we'll be able to come straight off and down to about here. Then bend down and across, do the same thing up front. Happy with that for the most part. So I got the hammer and dolly out now, and we're just gonna massage this back into place. Take all the sharp edges out that I created with the homemade bending apparatus. I obviously had a hell of a tack on that piece. That's great. So when we were bending it, we kind of flattened this bump out here. Take this guy and work that back into shape. Now that guy is good. We're almost straight on this, and we'll have to mark it and trim it back level across. So you can see how much right there that it grew when we flattened that edge out. We'll zip this off, and I suppose tack this back on in a little more secure fashion. That held up well. So just like we did in the video building the LR4 hitch, we're going to use a piece of welding rod to template our bends on the passenger side. This is some aluminum rod We'll bend it up. We'll be able to use this to transfer over to our sheet aluminum and use the brake for a nice correct bend. Then we get to use this to weld it up. So there's our front bend and our rear bend. This guy will sit just like that. So this chunk will start out as a 15-inch wide piece, and we'll start chopping it down from there. Here's what we came up with for the piece of aluminum that we need. Took some measurements of that guy and transferred them over. This will be cut out, so we'll have from here down and this one up straight across. This is our bend line for the bottom flange. We'll have another bend in this area. But what I'm gonna do is measure this top line, and we are 11 3/4 across. And if we did it correctly, we should be 11 3/4 across on this one. So I think we got everything sitting right. We're gonna leave this a little long in places just so we can trim some off as we fit it up. This isn't obviously perfect, and it is much easier to cut some off than add some to it. You know what's funny? The other day I was looking for that. Looked over here in my tub of 220 extension cord stuff. Nope. Where did Joe put it? On the metal brake. Better yet, it's obviously out in the open and visible, and I sat walking around the entire shop not finding it. But it's right here. So there's one bend, here's another. This bend we're gonna have to mark on the opposite side because it's reverse bending. So we're just gonna take our line across, mark it here, do the same here. So we're gonna start with our bottom flange first, then we can go in and fit it up. We're gonna kind of ease into this and adjust this along the way as necessary. So we are very close. We'll land with that. I think that looks pretty good, so we just need to come back at this line, make up that gap with the bend. So we got our rear bend pretty much dialed in there, just like that. And that one's pretty close. See, we're up tight, but the tunnel tapers in towards the front. So we just need to come across with a bend from there to this angle, and that will kick that front in. So we're gonna go from this corner down to the edge of the bend there. Not gonna need a ton, so we'll go check. You can see that little bend there. That kicked that back forward, and now we're even across. We're gonna have to trim around this rib up here, slice off at our line back here, and we're gonna come in on the back side, run the marker on the bottom of this onto this sheet, and we'll be able to cut that to height. But that's coming along nicely. All right, got that tacked on. Set it up there, make sure we are looking correct yet. We're good, so we will finish weld this guy out along with that one. So we have a complete transmission tunnel. This flange probably won't break off when I hit it with the hammer now, but we're just gonna hammer and dolly across this and flatten it out some, then do a little grinding. So we got everything pretty much sorted out. 2 floor panels look pretty sharp. We got our transmission tunnel all buzzed together. We got a little bit more hammering and dolly and fine tuning the body work. when we get to the paint stage on this guy. But it is looking pretty nice, and that extra little hump is gonna make that 6L80E happy. Without that, this guy wasn't going in there, so necessary. I have to say, I am pretty freaking stoked at how all that came together. It is always nice seeing a bunch of clean aluminum. The new non-corroded flange on the driver's side, floor sitting nice, and the new bump out on the transmission tunnel fits in there pretty well. Doesn't look out of place at all. I don't know, guys. Let me know how you guys think the tunnel and the floors turned out. I mean, the seat's not too comfortable yet, but no more Fred Flintstone. After the last couple days here in the shop between the floors and the hitch on the LR4, I have quite the disaster to get cleaned up. But I guess that's the way she goes when you're making progress on all the random projects. Appreciate you guys watching, appreciate you subscribing. More on the LS3 Defender in the near future. Have a good night. See, I'm telling you, fresh aluminum just looks so good. And I guess since we're rolling through projects, we may as well get the notch on the C10 drawn up. And there we have our piece. Just need that times 4.